Told you. Canes in 6. Trev's Hockey Show. I'm the Trev. That's too sweet. Anyway, so we're here. One of our two finalists is a two-time Stanley Cup champ. And while it's fun to look back at the last 6 games, the ones that the experts were saying was going to be one of the more boring Stanley Cup finals in league history, I'm glad when the experts are wrong, as this Stanley Cup final was anything but dull. And given the two finalists that we've had, we shouldn't be at all surprised that we're sitting here talking about the Carolina Hurricanes becoming a two-time Stanley Cup champ. I mean, we don't have to talk about how dominant they were on the way to the Stanley Cup finals, because we've already covered that. But these last 6 games, I have to say, were probably some of the best games I've seen for a Stanley Cup final in a long time. I'm not going to say it was the greatest Stanley Cup final I've ever seen, but it was pretty damn good. Either way, the Carolina Hurricanes are your 2026 Stanley Cup champs. It's definitely worth talking about. So let's talk about it. Alright, so again, we don't have to discuss how Carolina got here, how Vegas got here. We've done that. But games 1, 2, and 3, being all 3 were only decided by 1 goal. And being game 2 and game 3 both went to overtime. Game 3 went to double overtime. One would think after game 3, Carolina finally figured out how to play the Vegas system and dictated the terms on that and got them to play the Carolina system. And while Frederik Andersen did look solid in Carolina's net for the first 16 games, it was probably time to change him out. Given the backstory into coming into these Stanley Cup finals for him, it might have been best to give him the rest anyways. But Brandon Bussi was on point for games 4, 5, and 6. So while Carolina was outscored 13-12 in the first 3 games, games 4, 5, and 6 saw the Carolina Hurricanes we were used to seeing these playoffs, with Carolina outscoring Vegas 12-5. So finally, defense was playing their part. All told, though, your final goal count was still 24-18 in favor of Carolina. So goals aplenty on either side. So Carolina did this whole Stanley Cup run with a record of 16-3, which is the fewest games needed to win a Stanley Cup since the 1988 Edmonton Oilers did it. What's more impressive is Carolina went 8-1 on the road in the entirety of this year's playoffs. That one road loss was game 3. That was a double overtime in these Stanley Cup finals. But one also has to consider, this is 8 years in the making. 8 years they've been making the playoffs consistently, with 4 trips to the conference finals. Finally, the one trip that finally paid off. And not counting out Carolina's style or play, or their top line of Hall, Stankoven, and Blake doing pretty much all the goal scoring, if not the majority of it. You really have to look at where this all begins, and that begins behind the bench with Rod Brind'Amour. And obviously his style of coaching is something everybody on that Carolina bench bought into, and it worked. And being pretty much the only part of the 2006 Stanley Cup still on that team, this is a neat little full circle moment for him, because not only was he the player and the captain of the 2006 team, he's also the head coach of the 2026 team. So that puts him in good company. He is the 4th individual in NHL history to win the Cup as a captain and as a coach. Now, he joins some pretty damn good company. Toe Blake did it, Hap Day did it, Cooney Weiland did it, and now you can add Rod Brind'Amour to that list. Of course, when it comes to the Hurricanes and their history in Carolina, Brind'Amour's name is pretty much one in the same with Carolina's playoff history, as a player and as a coach. And I mean, behind Captain Jordan Staal, who pretty much set the tone for the Carolina Hurricanes playoff run in Game 1 against the Ottawa Senators way back in the quarterfinals. This is his 2nd Stanley Cup, having won his first one in 2009 in Pittsburgh, which is 17 seasons in between Cup wins. That is an NHL record. More importantly, though, he does also walk away with a Conn Smythe Trophy, which we'll talk about after this one, but also becomes the 2nd Staal to get his name on the Stanley Cup for the Carolina Hurricanes. Obviously, the first one, his brother Eric. Whereas a guy like William Carrier didn't have to wait so long to get his 2nd Stanley Cup. He only had to wait 3 years. Ironically enough, his first cup, he was a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. If it weren't for a trade that brought him into Carolina, he might be on the opposite end of this one. But behind all that, you got a team full of first-time winners. And a lot of guys who have just been chomping at the bit to get themselves a cup. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers left Winnipeg to come play in Carolina for a chance to win a cup. And that gamble paid off. Freddie Anderson, former Maple Leaf, playing solid for 13 games, as I'd mentioned. With his story in these playoffs, it's about time he got one. I mean, whether it was here or somewhere else, it was eventually coming. Or even a guy like Taylor Hall, who went from first overall pick to Hart Trophy winner. Now he's a Stanley Cup winner. And it only took him 16 years. Brandon Bussie was a waiver wire pickup from the Florida Panthers. Came in clutch when he needed to be clutch, including that Game 6 shutout. That Game 6 shutout gave the Hurricanes their 4th shutout in these playoffs. Or you even look at your Olympic medalists. Jacob Slavin won a gold medal, now has a Stanley Cup. He's the first American since Ken Morrow in 1980 to win a gold medal and a Stanley Cup in the same year. Or even Seth Jarvis got a silver medal, now has a Stanley Cup. Or Sebastian Aho has a bronze medal and a Stanley Cup. So all 3 Olympians, represented by a medal, have a Stanley Cup to their name. Not a bad deal. But as I've mentioned before, and I'll mention it again, the Carolina Hurricanes, it was only a matter of time. It was a matter of when, not if. It was a matter of when the Canes would finally win the Stanley Cup in the last few years. I mean, this team was built for the playoffs. The solid additions they've picked up along the way, be it Hall or Busey, or even trading for Carrier. I mean, with Stahl as the heading point, this team was built around the skill that they had. It was only inevitable. It's also worth pointing out this is the first time since 2018 a team representing the Metropolitan Division has won the Stanley Cup. Of course, that was the Capitals. And one has to hope, really, this is the first of many for the Hurricanes and the Stanley Cup in the next couple of years. One would hope, anyway. With a team built like they are, it would be a shame if this was the last one for another 20 years. But either way, a great series. And this only tops off a great season for the Hurricanes, being as dominant as they were in the regular season. I mean, they were the Eastern Conference champs, statistically. They were Eastern Conference champs in the playoffs by winning the Prince of Wales Trophy. They were only a handful of points away from being President's Trophy champs. Making it to the Stanley Cup Finals with a 12-1 record, sweeping their first 2 playoff rounds in this year's playoffs. I mean, up before the Stanley Cup Finals, they were so well defensively sound. First 2 rounds, they'd only let in 10 goals between 2 teams. Obviously, that changed in the conference finals, but didn't change by much. But to have all their hard work paid off, rewarded with the Stanley Cup win, that's got to be the best part of all for the Hurricanes. But with all that said, Carolina Hurricanes are your 2026 Stanley Cup champions. So that's another one of them Trev's Hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've made it to this point. If you made it to this point, you're doing great work, my friend. You've made it to the end. And I couldn't be more proud of you for doing so. I mean, you're helping out the watch time. But if you've made it to this point, if you're digging what I'm doing, or you just want to say, hey, dude, I'm all for it, throw me that thumbs up. Trust me, that thumbs up, much like the watch time, helps out that thing we talk about all the time, that algorithm thing. Helps give this channel exposure. I'll never say no to exposure. But if you really want, if you haven't done so by now, that red button, that one that says subscribe all over it, come on, you know you want to hit it. I know you want to hit it. That algorithm that we talk about all the time, it knows you want to hit it. And we're making that push to 500 by the end of the year. And we're getting so close. I mean, we're almost at 400. To everybody who's come along, thank you very much for your support. Know that I do appreciate it. If you really want to go the extra mile, though, I mean, that link in my description below, that'll take you to my Facebook page. Feel free to join me there. I'm enjoying watching the numbers build up there like they're building up here. I mean, the goal on Facebook is to get 100 followers by the end of the year. Maybe you consider doing so. I mean, I'm posting on there frequently, whether it's on my own page or somebody else's hockey page or a music page or movie page. I'm there. So, I mean, chances are we'll probably run into one another there. Maybe consider joining my page. Let's move forward. Well, we got to talk about the Conn Smythe Trophy. And then we got to figure out how we're wrapping up this season, because we're still not done. There's one more award after the Conn Smythe Trophy, plus everything else in between. But either way, in the meantime, and in between time, be looking forward to some Trev. Later.